What's up, Warrior Dad Nation? Okay, I just got back from my run. I'm gonna break the stretches down into little clips and show you the stretches that I do when I get back from a long hike or a run and doing outdoor activities. The big question is this: how do dads like us lose our body fat, get into the best shape of our lives, and set a good example for our kids in a way that doesn't require impossible to maintain fad diets, doesn't get us injured, and is easily sustainable long term? That is the question, and Warrior Dad Nation will give you the answers. Tip number one is don't stretch before you leave. Just do ankle rotations, do knee swivels. Let me aim this down so you can see my knees. Knee swivels, ankle rotations, and then simply start your cardio by walking. So walk first, and I just got back, so I'm gonna jump right into this right away. Position number one right away is I start with the back of the legs first. So I'm gonna just bring you on this journey with me. Okay, so, and this is great, especially when you're a little bit older like me. I'm 50, so definitely over 40, 50, and 60. Don't stretch before you run, that's tip number one. Stretch immediately after you get back. I grabbed some water, I ate a quick snack to feed my metabolism, and then I'll just literally start by breathing and going down in the middle. I'm not forcing it, I'm not bouncing, I'm just going with it. And then you'll hold this for 30 to 60 seconds. And then I'll gently just ease over to one side or the other. And then you're gonna hang out here for at least 60 seconds. And then you're gonna gently work your way over to this side. And then you're gonna hang out here for 60 seconds. This 30-second stuff they taught us back in elementary school is not cutting it. It's not gonna cut it as we get older. You need to hang out for longer. That muscle needs time to relax. And then once I've done this side for 60 seconds, I'm gonna wanna go back to this side again for 60 seconds. So it's gonna be 60 seconds per side times 2 rounds to give those muscles a chance to finally let go and unwind themselves a little bit. Now, movement number 2. Next position is similar, but it's just a slight variation. Now that I've started to loosen up a little bit, I'm gonna turn my torso a little bit and start reaching towards the side of my foot. So instead of just sort of reaching towards the front and sort of just gently easing into it, I'm not gonna push it too hard. I'm just gonna start to ease around towards the side. That's gonna start to stretch a little bit more of the outer part out here of the soleus and the gastrocnemius, and it's gonna pull differently on and it's gonna start to stretch more up into your hip and your glutes. It starts to pull on those muscles slightly differently. And then you're going to do that. Hold that for 60 seconds. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And pivot my torso until I'm reaching more towards the side over here, towards my ankle. Towards my ankle. And if it feels particularly tight after I hold it for 60 seconds, give it a break. Go back to this side for 60 seconds again. And then give it a chance to recover, and then ease back into that. If that's a tight spot, then ease back into it again after giving it a short break. Okay, now next position. We're gonna keep our feet forward. We can spread them out a little bit wider, and you're gonna start to gently lean to one side, keeping our foot like this. We're gonna do another move later where we move our foot position, but this position is feet are both this way. You can angle this foot out a little bit. If you've had knee injuries, you might want to take the foot that you're leaning on and angle that out a little bit. Sometimes for some people, if it's too straightforward, then it puts a little pressure on the ligaments out here. So you're gonna position that foot out, but this foot you want to keep nice and shooting straight forward. And then I'm gonna push my elbow against my knee a little bit. So now I'm stretching in here, I'm stretching all of this. I'm getting a bunch of multiple areas, even the hamstrings right here. are getting stretched. So really, this is great for us as we get older. This extra layer of stretching is so vital so that you can stay fit, you can hike, you can jog, you can stay fit into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And then after we hold that for a while, then I'll slowly shift and see I'll position this toe out and then ease into it. Don't just crank right over into it, just ease into it. Take a couple deep breaths. In a weird way, it's almost a form of yoga. And you want to hold these positions for a while, a minimum of 60 seconds. If it feels really tight, stay there a little longer. One thing I love to do while doing these stretches when I'm not filming is I'll put my phone on the floor and I'll watch YouTube videos or watch Netflix or something like that. Nothing where I have to use the phone, like Facebook, where I have to try to type, because you don't want to have to use your hand. Just press play and watch something. And then you can really take your time in each pose and give your body a chance. And then I'll repeat back to the other side again. And I'll go back and forth, minimum of 2 rounds of 60 seconds per side. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you the next position. Now the next position is the same, but now we're going to kick that toe up. And now you're going to start to feel it more into your calf. I don't want you grabbing onto your toe and pulling on that, where you're going to strain that Achilles tendon and over pull that calf. We want to ease that calf into letting go because those calves are really tight. So you want to slowly let those calves release, and then they'll slowly release and start to get more pliable as we progress through this stretching routine. Now I'm really just easing into that. And I'm pushing out with this elbow, and I've got this toe still. Now I'm up on this toe a little bit, and you can experiment with this foot position. Find a position where it feels comfortable for you. You don't want it too far under you like this, where your knee is way over here. That's going to put way too much pressure on your patellar tendon. So you want to get that foot far enough out and kind of find that sweet spot where you can ease into it, where you can just settle into a nice groove right there. My elbow's pushing out, so I'm stretching in here. It's stretching under here. It's stretching the gracilis, these inner muscles, and stretching up into the calf. And I can kind of sit back and let that toe pop up, so it starts to ease that calf into relaxing. Okay? And I'll come back on with you here in a minute with the next position. Okay, now we're going to come up out of these. Hi, Max. This is Max. This is literally a stray cat that has become my cat. He's like the neighborhood cat, and he learned to trust me. And now he comes in and I taught him how to use the dog door. It used to be Bronco's dog door. So now we're going to come up out of those stretches. And now that we've been doing all this sort of back of the leg stuff, a lot of hamstrings, calves, all this back of the leg stuff, now you always want to counterbalance and stretch the front. So we're not going to do, and I'm going to show you a couple quick things on how I'm doing this and why. So don't go up and just crank it up right away. Just ease it back. I'm pulling more back instead of pulling my foot into my butt, where that puts a lot of torsional pressure. I can put a lot of torsional pressure on that knee joint. I'm more pulling it, arcing it back, as opposed to cranking the foot like this, keeping really upright and cranking the foot up into my butt. That's going to put way too much pressure on those ligaments and tendons. So I'm going to put it back here. I'm just going to sort of relax into it and let it's almost going to look like your belly's sticking up, but it's not. Let your back arch. And then it's going to, because that's also, and then you slowly kind of and then lean, you can even lean your head back like this. So you're opening up now the whole front, because as you're running, these core muscles and the psoas muscles that are very deep inside that connect the upper torso to down into the lower, into your hip and whatnot, that gets tight. And from sitting all the time and all this stuff, that gets tight. So we want to open all of that up And I noticed for me, there's some psoas stretches that can be done, but I have a hip injury. If you've had a hip injury, there's a lot of psoas stretches that can really kind of hurt your hip and they'll kind of pull my hip out of socket. So I found that I can get the similar benefits by just slowly arching my back, not cranking on that foot either. Just slowly pulling it back, letting everything open up and relax, and sort of see I'll sort of lean into it. And it's actually secretly also stretching this shoulder. So this shoulder, I'm gonna go on one foot for a second, which I'm not great at. This shoulder is actually secretly getting a great stretch at the same time. And those shoulders can get tight while you're running. If you've had shoulder injuries and you're going on a little bit longer runs, like an hour-long run, you can feel maybe a little discomfort in your shoulder. This will stretch that out, but this also will help for your upper body days. This is doubling as a shoulder stretch for that shoulder joint and really opening that up, while it's also opening up your whole front of your torso. Your core muscles are getting a chance to be opened up, your psoas muscles along with your quadriceps, basically the front of your legs as well. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in this stretch. And then I'll repeat that on the other side as well. And I'll come back at you here in a minute with the next stretch. Okay, now we're done with all the standing stuff for now. Now we go down to the floor stuff, and Max is joining us. Good boy, Max. But make sure you stay out of the way, buddy. I gotta do my stuff here. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm gonna spread my legs apart like this, pet my cat. Yeah. He's the cat that found me. I didn't adopt him or rescue him or anything, other than just naturally he started coming around. I started feeding him, and now there's this fluffy ball of fun here that comes and hangs out. I taught him how to use the dog door and everything. So, but sorry, Pet Max, I gotta focus on my stretching here, buddy. Ugh. So, I'm not gonna start grabbing my toes and yanking on my toes. Nothing extreme. We're gonna ease into things. So we just start by, sure, stuck on the back there. And now I can reach my toe, past my toes, no problem. But if you just need to reach towards your toes, just ease into it. Don't yank on anything. Don't start cranking on them and pulling on them or anything like that. Even for me, even though I can reach past them, I'm not gonna grab my toes and start pulling on it really hard yet. And I'm never gonna pull on it hard. I'm just gonna ease into it. I'm touching the toe and I've got my hand there, but I'm not actively like pulling on it. Yes, Max. He's decided to join us. So now I'm gonna hang out for a while on this foot, and I'll show you what I'm gonna do while I'm on this foot, and then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other foot. And now, similar to standing up, we're gonna, if you feel some tenderness, hang out on this foot for a while, and we're gonna show you all the things to do on this foot, and then you're gonna go to the other foot. And then I want you to repeat the cycle one more time back on this foot. So you're on each foot 2 times for a minimum of about 1.5 to 2 minutes. Really, a physical therapist would tell you, you want to spend 2 minutes stretching this, doing this stretch and easing into it. So now I'm going to grab the inside of my foot and start pulling on the inside. This one you can put a little extra tension on. And this, you'll be surprised, this will start to pull on the outer side of our calf, where for a lot of men, a lot of people, they'll develop calf issues and they don't realize why. You start incorporating this into your stretching routine and you can say goodbye to your calf issues, along with a few other things, the timing of your running, not stretching before you run, never stretching your calves cold, never just like putting your toe up on a stair or against a wall and just stretching it, then you think you're doing good. You're not. You're creating micro tears in that cold muscle. You're redlining an engine before the engine's gotten out of the oil pan and up into the engine, and to lubricate those pistons, you're gonna blow a gasket. So people get micro tears and they get chronic calf issues, not realizing that they're causing it themselves. So now I'll pull on the inside for a while, and then I'll rotate myself back up to the tip, and then I'll start to rotate to the outer portion. So you're gonna sort of work your way around your foot, all perimeters, and you'll find a tight spot. If I find a tight spot, then hang out at that tight spot for a little bit longer, okay? And so I'm gonna spend at least 2 minutes, hanging out with this foot. I can put my YouTube video on. If I was watching YouTube video, I'd have a YouTube video on right here, and I could just hang out and watch some YouTube videos or watch Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever you fancy. And I'm gonna hang out and I'm gonna hit all these different spots of this foot, and then I'm gonna go back to this part. Now, one additional variation I'm gonna show you. While I'm hanging out on this side, I'm gonna show you variation. I'm gonna start to lean over while I'm grabbing on the inside of the foot. I'm gonna start to lean over, and this is gonna start to pull all the way up into the hip, down the IT band, all the way down the side of the calf and even into the shin. And then I'm gonna sort of lay down into it. After I've been stretching for a little while and I've felt things start to loosen up, then I can do this, where I sort of lay down towards the ground, and I'm gonna let that pull all the way up. And I'm pulling on the arch. Keep your shoes on for these stretches. It really helps you with these stretches, actually. These are really hard to do barefoot because you have nothing to grab onto. Your foot's too slippery, your socks are slippery, even your barefoot, it's just too slippery. Keep your shoe on. I like to loosen my laces and do these stretches with loose laces. And then I can put my face towards the ground, I can look this way. But I'm still supporting myself. I'm not laying down on the ground, I'm still supporting myself. And I only do that after it's had a while to loosen up. And then back to this position. And then once I really feel like it's all starting to relax a little bit and I kind of work out any kinks in there, and I may be here for 3 minutes. And then finally, I'm gonna switch over to the other side and do the same thing over here. We often tend to have one side that's worse than the other. Feel free to hang out a little extra on the side that's worse. But then always go back and do a little stretching on the other side to balance it out, but you can spend more time on one side than the other. Just always make sure if you've been to this foot 3 times, let's say I need to do another round, and I go to this a 3rd time, then go back to this one for a third round, but just don't do it as long. So this is my good side that doesn't need as much work, but I'll go through the whole routine, but I won't hold it for quite as long as I hold my sensitive side where I've had injuries in the past from other sports and other things. So I'm going to continue on with my stretching, but this is the next phase of the whole stretching routine. And then when we're done with this, then we're going to get up and do one more short round of standing and one more round of quad stretching shortly after this. Okay, now for the final portions of this stretching routine. All right. So now I've done all the groundwork. Now I'm back up on my feet. You can do a couple of body weight squats just to keep those knees lubricated, and just make sure that if you feel any creakiness in there, then feel free to just sit like this for a minute and let this naturally stretch out. Of course, I'm driving back with my hips first, and it's a good stretch even just to go down and hang out like this. Just hang out down here for a minute. It's good for your hip health too. But just measure, make sure that your knees are not out in front of your toes. If they are, then go back up, push back with your hips first before you go down. And then you can measure down and make sure that your knees are not sticking out further than your toes. Now, the final couple stretches, I've been on the ground a lot, so I'm gonna go back and do one more set of quad stretches. So I'm gonna do those on each leg, where I'm not cranking it in towards my butt, I'm lifting it back and away. Back and away is much less pressure on those ligaments and tendons and everything. And then I'm arching my back and sort of letting my torso sort of arch around and arch, and let my back hyperextend and arch so that I can open that torso up, open that psoas muscle up and everything else. Open those hips up without there's a lot of stretching routines that you'll see, and I've tried them because I know they're recommended, and even my physical therapist is like, here, try this stretch. Nope, I've had a hip injury. A lot of the stretches that they try to have you do, like where you're putting your foot this way, you're down on the ground, and you're leaning over this, it pops my hip out of place. So if you want injury-free stretches that you can do that'll promote flexibility and promote long-term health without re-injuring you, just follow these simple stretches. They work great. So now I'll do each leg again, and then I'm gonna do one final just reaching down to each side. Look for any tight spots. Spend a minute here, reach towards the outside again, just sort of a mini 30 seconds on each side. I'll just sort of feel around. If I feel a tight spot, then I'll hang out there for a minute. And let it, just sort of breathe into it. Like I have a tendency to have a tight spot on this side. And I'm gonna show you one little bonus tip too, that will secretly help get rid of tight issues down here. Let me angle this camera down just towards my feet so you can see this interesting stretch. And this is also a great stretch for getting rid of easily twistable ankles. Like if you have sensitive ankles, so you gotta do this with your shoes on. Now, I'm not gonna put a lot of pressure. I'm gonna purposely roll my foot to the side. And then I'm gonna start to bend over a little bit. You'll feel it stretch up the side of your calf. And it also is stretching these ligaments. You don't want these ligaments so stiff. We want them pliable and flexible. And you keep doing this over time, you can get to the point where if you're on a trail and say you're hiking or jogging on a trail, on an uneven trail, and you sort of roll your foot, you can just roll your foot and just keep going. Like you can just step right out of it because now you're developing elasticity. You're developing flexibility in those ligaments in your foot so they're not so brittle and sensitive. So I'm gonna stretch it like that, and then I'm gonna reach down towards it a little bit. Nothing, I'm not cranking on it, I'm not putting all my weight on it. I have most of my weight on this, on my regular leg. I'm just gently applying a little bit of pressure to it. I'm even holding onto the counter so I don't overdo it. I'll hold on to a tree or a counter or a bench or whatever is near me, wherever I am. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And if you have tightness in there, then you could, ooh, I can feel like, oh, there's a little tightness right there. So that's good. Now let me just sort of slowly lean into it. Not gonna crank down on it, I'm not gonna bounce on it. I'm just gonna slowly lean into that and let that stretch, this outer portion, I'm letting it stretch the ligaments that come down here and roll around the edges of your feet. Those support muscles and ligaments that roll around your foot, we want to stretch those out because those get sensitive too. And that helps prevent injuries as we get older. And now a super important thing as a reminder, don't necessarily run again the next day. If you want to do something the next day, don't run 2 days in a row. If you really want to get out, go for a walk the next day. Run no more than every other day is what I highly, highly recommend. And I even followed that structure when I was winning races, and I was placing in the top 10 of every race that I did, not just in my age group, but overall. Even the one that I did last year, whatever, that I have up on the fridge, the first place that I got, first place in my age group and top 10 overall against 20 and 30-year-olds. And this mountainous hilly half marathon that I did. And that's because of this type of training methods where you're not overdoing it. You need to do other things other than just running. You can run every other day. On the days in between, do strength training. Go for a walk. Do Stairmaster. Do something else. Ride a bike. Not aggressive biking. Like if running is your focus, for example, don't do aggressive cycling on the day in between. Do light cycling. Do an active recovery type of cycling. Go for a swim. But real important is also to do squats, to do leg training. At least just once a week though. If you're running a lot, if you're running 4 days a week, then just do that strength training once a week. The day after you do your strength training, you do a really super light jog without hills in it. Or you go for an aggressive hike where you walk at a really good pace, so you really break in a good sweat, you get out of breath, but it's not impactful on those muscles that you just did on leg day. But you don't want to just rest after leg day either. You want to do an active recovery because then the blood can flush down into those muscles, clean out the debris. I'm not going to go into all the scientific facts, but there's a bunch of processes that happen that leave a bunch of hydrogen and electron molecules and lactic acid in those muscles. So you want to get that blood down in there, bringing oxygen to those muscle tissues to help them grow and repair and grow stronger, at the same time cleaning out the debris from the previous day's workout. I'll put it that way and I'll leave it at that. So now I'm finishing up my stretch. That is what I call the long stretch routine. That's on after a longer cardio session, like 30 plus minutes. If you're doing something light, I would, if you're only just doing a little 15-minute walk, do a super duper abridged version of this, because these longer stretches, if you do this on a muscle that's too cold, then that's too much. You're gonna get micro tears. We don't want that. You only wanna do this level of stretching, this length of stretching on muscles that have really been flushed with blood and really are starving for oxygen and relief. And that's when you really can apply this full routine. If you haven't, then just go easy on this, step all this way down and just do a simple reach and stretch, do the quad, and then maybe reach and do the shorter version without all the floor stuff. All that floor stuff that I was doing, that's the more advanced. If you've been doing, let's even just say, if you were doing an aggressive 25 plus minutes of cardio, then there's enough blood in your muscles. If you've just gone out for a 15-minute stroll, don't do all this stretching. It's way too much stretching on muscles that are not warmed up enough and not full of enough blood to fully be elastic enough to really let go. And if they're a little bit still, if they're not as full with blood yet, then you're gonna create micro tears, and we don't wanna do that. So, a lot of Warrior Dad training is about injury prevention, injury recovery, and longevity. Those are the core foundation principles of all of the Warrior Dad training, actually. So, more great stuff coming at you soon. Enjoy your stretch. Enjoy your day. TJ, Warrior Dad, signing off.